So we're gonna try something a little bit different today, because usually when I do these tutorials here, or we can't really call this a tutorial, but usually when I do videos, they're more scripted and I have, just some bullet points to look at in order to like have something to talk from. But today we're gonna do something a little bit different. And when I say that, I mean that I have a very hard time coming up with ideas just out of the blue. It's kind of like when I try to come up with originality, it's like I'm inside this haze and I'm trying to reach out, trying to grab ideas that I can't really see. And I wanted to challenge myself. One of the most important things I think is to do. That didn't sound right. One of the things I think is most important to do is to make sure you work on your weak sides and make sure that you maintain your strong sides. And that's why I've always been just kind of like the type of person who can do a little bit of everything, but I'm not like super expertise type person into one type of thing. And in this example here, I thought, why not try something that I know I'm weak at and try and make a video out of it and see how it goes. And this is totally unscripted. I didn't really know how I was going to make the format for this video, so I'm just gonna like sort of try something out here. Essentially, I wanted to do a speed art web design video, but I also want to commentate over it as I'm showing off what exactly I did and show you like the sped up process of me building the web design. So I can talk about how my brain came up with different ideas and how I just sort of like, just to give an idea about how my brain works when I tried different things out and it didn't really work out, and I had to like make sure I was sticking within certain design rules when it comes to building web designs. So there's a lot of things that goes into creating something creative. Like there's a lot of design rules that you have to follow, and I have a lot of design rules because I do have a bachelor's in web development. But typically when people, they do a education of some sort, they tend to deviate into different areas. So you have some students who are just really creative and really good at coming up with these like really awesome designs. Then you have another group of people who are really good at building the front end of a website, like HTML, and they love messing around with CSS and all kinds of creative ways, and do JavaScript really awesome. But then you also have like the geeks over there that really loves to dive into the more back-end type of thing, PHP, databases, servers, that kind of thing. So, it's very rare to have one person who's really good at everything. Like people have different areas they gravitate towards, and that's the thing they pursue, and that's the thing they do. But I'm the type of person, I think it's important to work on our weak sides too. So in my example here, I thought let's do something that I'm weak at. Let's try and create a web design and make a speed art video for YouTube and see how that goes. I tried to come up with something that is completely original. I tried not to have any sort of inspiration on the side, because typically when you like create something, any sort of like creative process, whether it's web designs or a painting or something, then you typically have source material that you get inspired from. But in my case here, I wanted to do this completely fresh and just kind of like see how it turns out. Because like I said, I'm not very good at being creative, but I wanted to push my brain to see how I would do in something I'm weak at. And I know it's also a thing that creativity is always going to stem from something. So if I make up any kind of design without having anything on the side to look at, then it's probably still something that I, subconsciously have stored in my brain from like 5 years ago that I saw. So now I'm incorporating it into my design here. So there's no such thing as like true, what do you call that? Like, creativity that you came up with. Like everything is gonna come from something to some degree. But I tried my best here without having source material, and this is what I came up with. And by the way, you're more than welcome to leave a comment about what you think should be better inside my design, because we only get better by learning and getting feedback and any sort of input from people that are really good at whatever you're trying to do. So if there's anyone watching that are really good at making web design, you're more than welcome to leave a comment about what you think could have been improved, and any sort of thing you can nitpick at is something that can be helpful. So with that said, let's actually try and see what I did here. Now, I started out using something called Adobe Experience, which is a Adobe program that you typically use to make, apps or websites. It's a little bit more faster working than Photoshop, because I know a lot of people like to use Photoshop. So it's more like specified toward this particular purpose. As you can see at the beginning, I started out by picking some colors that I wanted to use for my website. I did have an idea in mind before I went into this, which was I wanted to make a product website that sells clocks, wristwatches and that kind of thing, kind of like a modern style of wrist watches. And I wanted to pick some colors that symbolize that, because as we know, colors, they symbolize different things. So, for example, orange is more of a technology kind of, vibe they give. So I wanted to give something that had the colors that would go with time and technology. So I went with orange and yellow in this case here. I did also have some other secondary colors picked out, as you can see on the left side here at the bottom, but I didn't really use them too much inside my design because I don't know, for some reason I thought I was going to be needing more colors, but I actually in the end ended up not needing those colors. So I just kind of like stuck with the top part that I had in here. What I'm doing right now, as you can see, is I'm trying to come up with a rough layout for the website just to have some sort of starting place. Because one thing that I've learned is that, through people who do painting, is you don't really start out creating high detail from the beginning. You create a rough sketch and then you slowly go through it again and again and make it, higher detail each time. So in this case here, I made some rough mock-ups, and from there I just kind of like started filling in to make sure that the content would be something that fit into the website, essentially. I did have this idea in mind that I wanted to have this round clock at the top, because the top of the website, since this is a product website, needs to have some sort of call to action feature or like a section at the top of the website. And I wanted to have a clock in here, but I didn't quite know how to incorporate that clock. Should it be something I drew myself? Or should it be something that I took from a photo and just kind of like, photoshopped into the website to make it, fit with the website? But in the end, I decided that, you know what, I'm being creative here. Let's try and make something from scratch. And I'm going to try and draw a clock using Adobe Experience, which again is not Photoshop. So I had to use the tools that I had in here. I did consider at the beginning, using Photoshop to draw a clock, which is what you saw at the beginning when I was, selecting things on an existing clock on a photo. But I decided, you know what, let's try and use the tools inside Adobe Experience. I started making some of the details like a search bar at the top so people could actually search for products. I started to make the menu. I also had to come up with some kind of logo at some point that I wanted to use, but at the beginning here, I just kind of like created some text to have some filler while I was just making the mock-up. And like I said, I would make things more detailed and more, finished later towards the end. So I just needed to have some content that I pasted in, and then I could, improve that as I went on. Now at the top here, I do have a very heavy right side when it came to the colors. I have this white side and I have a black side of the website. And the idea is that I needed to have one side that, was a call to action for the products. And then on the right side, I wanted to have a call to action for what made this company special and why you should buy this company's watches compared to other manufacturers out there. And one of the things that I ran into, which was an issue, is that when you do this type of thing, you give the user two things that pops into their brain as soon as they enter the website that they need to focus on at the same time. And that's not really a good idea, because you want to make sure you have one focus point. You want to have one thing that grabs the attention of the user when they enter the website. And a little bit later on, I realized that, and I started reorganizing things at the top of the website here, just to make sure the right side isn't as heavy as the left side, because there's a lot of dark colors going on, but also to make sure that, there's not so much going on with the black colors grabbing the attention. Because right now you could argue that the right side is actually the most important side, because that is more heavy than the left side. So I tried to experiment a little bit when it came to the clock here, and I had to like try and make it look like a clock. And I know that in the end of my design, and you may hate me for punching this out, but I actually ended up having one of the clock hands being, the same size as the other one. So there's not a shorter one and there's not a longer one. And you could argue that inside a real watch website, you want to make sure you have a clock that's proportionally correct. In this case, this one is not. So it's like 2 clock hands that are the same size and length. But with that, one of the rules that I have is when you make something and you can't quite point out what is wrong, try and step away from the design for a little bit and return to it, which I did here. And then I started thinking, okay, you know what? I need to have a gradient of something going on the left side. Because like I said, it's quite heavy on the right side. So the left side had to like keep up with the right side. I had to have something done for the left side to be seen and at least as important as the right side, because that's the product call to action. So I had to do something, and I experimented a little bit with colors, as you saw. Colors doesn't really work out. One of the important rules about making web design is simplicity. And if something becomes too busy inside the website, then it's not good, especially when it comes to using colors. And here you can see me start experimenting with purple. And this is one thing, fun thing. Purple is the color poison most of the time, purple and green. And this purple is poisoning my design slowly over time, as you'll notice. And it actually starts taking over, and I start making everything purple a little bit later on, and then realize that, okay, that's not a good idea, because first of all, everything looks the same because everything is purple, but also because I'm not using the original colors that actually has meanings that goes into this clock web design that I'm making here. So I had to make sure that I went back to my original colors later on. Again, I have to show that I went through this really annoying process of using purple, and as you can see, I'm actually taking a small break, trying to return to the design. And then I thought, you know what? Those colors, those circles that I put in the corners there, they don't work out. Because I was trying to fill up this empty space inside the website, because right now, as you could see inside the design at the top, I had some text at the top, but there was just empty space below it. And I tried to fill that up with circles, because that's a typical thing designers do. Whenever there's something that is just empty, you try to fill it up with random shapes that have something to do with the website to make it a little bit more artist looking. And in my case here, I tried too hard with something that you shouldn't do, which is to leave a lot of space that had no meaning inside the website. It is important that you don't make your website too crowded, but you also want to make sure that there's a purpose with all the spacing you have inside the website. So right now I have this empty space at the bottom on the left side, and I have the empty space at the top on the right side, and I'm trying to fill it in with colors and shapes and different things, which you shouldn't do, at least unless you have some really popping thing that really is essential to the website. Then of course you can do it, but in this case here I just did it to fill in, which is not a good thing when it comes to web design. For example, if you want to use a photo or something of a product, it's a really good idea, or a video, or maybe a link that takes you somewhere else that is important, like something like that needs to be filled in. But don't leave a lot of empty space for nothing other than just taking up space, because then you can very quickly, just make that into something else that does something else inside the website. There's no need to waste space inside the website. But it's also important not to make things too simple, because the thing about simplicity is that it's really important inside a website, both when it comes to not making things too busy in terms of like content being too close together or colors being too much of inside the website. It's just very important that you make sure that you use simplicity, but don't do it too much inside a website. One thing that I did take from my education back when I was studying is there's like different rules and different things that you have to follow when it comes to design, like design theory that you have to like make sure you maintain inside a website in order for it to be a proper website. And I have something called the CRAP rules, C-R-A-P, which sounds weird because it's literally crap, you were saying, but it stands for contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity, which basically means that with contrast, you want to make sure there's a clear differentiation between the important things and the non-important things. For example, using colors to say, oh, this is a very important button to press. and then making sure that you don't use colors that pop out for things that the user shouldn't be looking at. So, making sure that things are contrasty, both with the text, some sizes being large and some others being smaller, to highlight the importance of certain things is very important. Then you have the repetition, which is to make sure that everything is repeated across the website, making sure that things, like text sizes are the same across all pages, alignments are the same across all the pages. Then you have something called alignment to make sure that everything aligns up properly so it doesn't look noisy and unorganized inside your website. And then the last one is proximity, which means that the important things that goes together has to look like they go together. To give an example here, on the left side, as you can see, I'm actually starting to experiment with decreasing the right side a little bit because, again, proximity and contrast. Want to make sure the left side is the most important part inside the call to action section here. So I'm decreasing the spacing on the right side to say this is secondary important. This isn't the most important part of the website. And then proximity is, of course, keeping the content together. So I have the left side, which has, product call to action, and the right side is, what does this company do special call to action section. Same thing with the content further down the page. You can see that I have, small background colors to kind of like group things together and making sure that things are sticking close together if they belong together with the categories or the daily sales news and the rewards at the bottom of the page, just to make sure things are clearly, sticking together. But as you can see, I struggle a bit with the top section here. I can't really figure out about the colors. I can't really figure out what to do with the empty sections. I try really hard to try and do something with the art before I realize that, oh wait, there's not supposed to be empty space. There's supposed to be content. And then I come up with making a video promotion. So, a video they can click on that shows off the products of the website. I put that at the bottom here just to give the users something to do so there's not empty space. And the same thing goes to the right side. I start thinking, the art stuff that I made looks cool, but it shouldn't be the main content of the empty space. It should just be like a background element. So I wanted to do something to make sure that the video was filling in the empty space on the left side, and on the right side that I had something that could like do a slide down the page for products or something, just something that had a purpose. So essentially I just started experimenting a little bit here. I tried to use photos quite a bit to see if I should try and make something that backgrounds using photos, for the white section, because I thought the white section was a little bit too white. There's just not something going on there. And later you'll see that I actually start realigning things to create some contrast and just to make it fill out the space, to make sure that there's not too much white space going on. But I get to that. Right now I'm trying to get the clock working because, like I said, I wanted to make it myself. And using the colors that I used here, I tried to use orange, I tried to use yellow, I tried to use darker colors, but they started popping too much. It was like this one clock element is just taking away the attention of the user too much. It's like you enter the website, you see some text in the left corner, which is time for an upgrade, and then you see the clock in the center, which has nothing to do with the web page other than, giving the user this subconscious idea that this is a clock or a wristwatch company. So it shouldn't be anything that is taking as much attention away as a call to action section. So I do something about this a little bit later on to make it not as contrasty. I dial down, so it's not colored, it's just the same black colors on the right side. Again, I haven't done that yet. And now you'll see me do something that is not very good. I went crazy with the purple, which I did say at the beginning I was going to do at some point. I started making these different background images for the different categories further down the page. One really important rule here is whenever you want to incorporate images from, for example, Pexels or something, which is like royalty-free images, is to make sure that you put them into Photoshop and change them accordingly so they actually match up with your website. Don't just take photos and put them in and then, you know, expect them to work, because they won't. Because usually they only work if you tailor-made them to your website. Even the small amount of Photoshop that I did is like bare minimum of what you should do. You should have, you know, done a lot more with the product photos. Even this one here with the straps is like for a bag, but I just kind of put them in there and hope that no one would notice that this is not wristwatch leather straps, just to fill something in. So I'm not really, you know, following the rule here where when you use any sort of like royalty-free photos to create a website, make sure that they actually fit really well with the website. I don't really follow that here. It just kind of like becomes whatever I found, because I'm not really creating an actual website for someone. I'm just like doing a speed design thing here. So I was a little bit loose on that side of things. And as you can see, everything is super purple right now. And I tried to like change the text a little bit to make sure it's not lorem ipsum text, and try to actually make it matter to the website. And then I realized that, okay, it's because everything is purple, nothing is standing out. And it doesn't give up the right vibe of what exactly the website is, because purple does not stand for technology or time and you know, like discount or anything like that. It's something you would usually find on Twitch, you know, a streaming website. It's not something that fits with this kind of product that I'm trying to make here. So I try really hard, and I'm like, something is wrong here, and I can't see what it is. And then I realize, oh wait, the colors are just not working out. So I started, you know, just changing the colors. I tried to dial the colors down to make the purple stand out more, but I just came to the conclusion that it has to be the original color theme that I picked out. I'm trying really hard to make the purple work. As you can see, I'm like trying to paint in purple inside the category images and stuff like that, but it's just not working out. There's a lot of things that went through my mind as I was making this, and it was like constant updating, and I would stop and criticize my own work and question it. And it's really important you do that type of thing whenever you try to be creative about something. You have to question it and be critical about what you do in order to make sure that, you know, it's actually turning out properly in what you're doing. Here you can actually see I start using the original colors again. Very good decision, because now things are actually contrasty and popping out the right way. And I'm just trying to like complete the website, because I'm at a point now where I start thinking, okay, it is starting to get finished. There's some touch-up things that is not quite working out. As you can see here, I noticed the thing about the clock, that the color was just kind of like popping too much. So I had to make sure that I blended it with the right side of the website. I also realized that the categories further down the page weren't really descriptive enough, because again, keep criticizing your own thing. If I was a customer and I went into this website here, would I know what these sections down here were? Because I need something that the user can look at and say, oh, these are categories, I might be interested in this. And then take a look at the photos, because the text inside the photos don't pop out enough. They're not contrasty enough for the person to see those as something their eye should go to, essentially. The categories that I put at the top there, you know, with the text, is something that will actually grab the attention of the eyes for the user to know what these sections are about. Because you have to describe the content and make sure the user knows what exactly the different sections do. So at this point here, I'm like, okay, the last touch up is we need to make sure that the spacing inside the footer, like there's a lot of empty space, and I want to like fill it out a little bit, because there was just like a little bit of content on the left and a little bit of content on the right. I also wanted to make sure that the address and the contact info, you know, was standing out. So I didn't want to like take up space all the way to the right side, but just to have a little bit of things going on inside the center there was a really good idea. So just kind of like filling in some more the links for my sitemap at the bottom, because the sitemap is also really important in order to make sure the user can navigate your website very easily no matter which page they're inside of. So having this sitemap at the bottom here with all the different links is just a really good idea. And at this point, I actually came up with my design. and I came up with something that I'm quite proud of, because like I said, I'm not a very creative person. So, you know, having this is a victory for me, even if people have any sort of critique for it, because there most likely is. And even though I did follow a very harsh list of design rules and different things that I had to make sure I followed, there's probably still a lot of things in here that should be different in order for this to be, you know, maybe giving a better user experience, or just, you know, the design being a lot more friendly, you know, towards your eyes when you enter the website. But this is something that I came up with completely without inspiration, and I'm pretty proud of it, even though it is very simple. And it's my first attempt at creating something. I don't know if you know this, but I have not created a web design in years. Like, it's many years ago. Like, typically I'll just do programming. And as you may have noticed inside my tutorials here, I think the only point I've created a web design in like 10 years has been in order to like make a responsive website design for my HTML tutorial series on this channel here, like 5 years ago, 3 years ago. It's some years ago. Other than that, I usually do more about programming and just like markup things. Like, you'll even notice that my examples inside my courses here are very simplified. Like, a contact form tutorial is not going to have a very pretty contact form. It's just going to be like basic HTML and CSS, and then, you know, just to have something that can be used in order to show off the PHP for that particular video. So coming up with this was definitely a challenge, and like I said, you're more than welcome to leave a comment about any sort of criticism you may have for my little product here. What would you have done different? Because I am learning, just like so many other people are, and my strengths are not when it comes to web design, but it was a lot of fun to do. And like I said, I like to spend like 70% of my time on what I'm not good at, even if I'm slowly progressing and not doing it very fast. You know, I'm stepping one step at a time until I reach the top of the mountain. So with this, I hope you enjoyed this video format and this cool little video that I at least think is cool, because it's different and it's unscripted. So it's different from what I usually do. So with that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next video. At the end here, I'd love to say thank you to all the different patrons and YouTube members who is actually supporting the channel, as well as a special thanks to Kelly Corvey, who's actually sponsoring the channel for the month. So thank you so much. The channel wouldn't be here if it wasn't for all the different members. So thank you so much, and I'll see you guys next time.